Greetings YouTube, LMS Tactical here with my buddy Charlie. I want to first thank everybody for all the well wishes regarding Charlie and his surgery for the cancer. He's got a huge incision, probably about like that, on his back. So I'm taking him out. He can't go swimming in the river because of the incision, but I do want to keep him exercised. It's just been really scary and depressing, man, worrying about him so much. The bad news, and I mean, it makes my stomach hurt. I almost fainted. But I'm still waiting on their pathology reports from the tumor they removed. And yesterday I'm petting him, and he rolls on his back, and I'm petting him under his arm, and I find a freaking bump about this big, you know, deep in the lymph node area under his arm. So, you know, it's tough. That means when I go get the stitches out, I'm going to have that biopsied. I mean, and that would be a real pain in the ass place to have surgery. He's been through a lot. I hope it's just a fatty tumor. I mean, he's had a lot of those, so keep your fingers crossed. What else? What else do I really want to talk about? The debates last night? I did watch the debates. Yeah, I just heard on the radio when I left the house, I heard that the trial for Freddie Gray, the Freddie Gray murder trial, where they're trying the first cop, he's a black guy, that the jury is deadlocked. And it just got me thinking, man, how would you like to be that cop on trial, you know, for murder? You know, my heart goes out to the family of Freddie Gray, or anybody that dies for any reason other than, you know, deserved death. I mean, the guy had a broken neck. You guys all know the story. And I guess, you know, the weak allegation is that somehow these cops broke his neck and they're covered. Doesn't, you know, I think 3 of the cops are black, I think, out of the group. And the whole Black Lives Matter people are the ones that are pushing this whole trial. You know, it's a farce. It's a fucking sellout. They're selling out the lives of these innocent cops because they got to blame somebody, you know, and the system has caved. This guy shouldn't even be on trial. I mean, there is no evidence at all to support the fact that these cops all conspired to murder Freddie Gray. It's just not there. But, you know, the city of Baltimore and all the liberals and the people that are being pressured by Black Lives Matter, which is a racist organization just on its very name, you know, these people are demanding that heads roll and that somebody get convicted, and if not, they'll burn down the city. This whole Black Lives Matter thing is such a joke. How in the world is any civilization ever supposed to advance when you have a small group of people that are leading a large group of non-thinking people that can't think for themselves? And I'm talking about liberals and Democrats, and for the most part, the majority of African Americans, I hate that term, in this country. You know, they let themselves be pushed around by these fucking bullies and people like Al Sharpton, who, you know, gets invited to the White House and owes something like $4 million on back taxes. You know, this is the party of endorsing the criminals and prosecuting the innocent. It's unbelievable. I've got, you know, I hate to say I've got black friends because that sounds racist. Well, I do. And one in particular I grew up with, man, from the time I was a little poor white kid living out in a suburb of Los Angeles. And now we're all grown up, and he's living in Philadelphia. Gary, if you're watching the video, you know I'm talking about you. And I mean, you know, this guy is a smart guy. He's a great father. He's a great human being. He's a good man, a solid man. But he has been so fucking tainted, and I use him because this is what I think is going on with the majority of these black people that just are never going to be satisfied. No matter what you say to this guy, he's always going to revert back to slavery. He's always going to revert back to cops that are hunting down black people and murdering them in the streets. And it's all bullshit. It's like he's allowed himself, and all of the blacks that agree with him or think like that have allowed themselves to let other people do their thinking for him. And that's why I call them the Al Sharptons and the liberal whites. Those are the new slave masters of modern era, because they push this anger and they keep the fires of hate and racism stoked. Some do it for financial gain. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, they've made careers of doing this shit. And others do it for political. They just hate America, and they're racist themselves. And you know, how can you imagine Martin Luther King, what he would say to the concept of Black Lives Matter? I mean, really, because Black Lives Matter insinuates that the other lives don't. Well, you haven't been a slave. Well, neither has any one of you cocksuckers that is out there yelling Black Lives Matter. You fucking idiots live in the best country on the fucking planet. Not so much so anymore because Obama's had all this time to destroy it. But you know, this was always the best place. This was the country that people were sneaking into, not sneaking out of. You know, there is not one solitary country on the African continent that any African American wishes he lived in or she lived in, because they're all in turmoil. They're all fucked up. You know, look at Liberia. How many blacks even know the fucking history of Liberia? Probably none. Well, there's got to be 2 or 3. But you know, those were all freed slaves, man. Hey, go back and fucking we'll send you back to Africa, and you're back where you started. How great is that? And in Liberia, they slaughter each other. Economically, they're fucked up. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable, man. I'm not going to get into the history of Liberia, but if you really want to study this whole thing about America, love it or leave it, or the blacks should have been brought back to Africa, they were. And go look at Liberia and then come back and tell me how many African Americans have given away all their possessions and flown out to fucking Liberia, modern day, and wanted to live there. None of them would want to live there. You can't do anything. Over here, you can be the fucking president of the United States, even if you're a fucking tyrant, liberal fuck up. You know, so here we live in an era now where we got cops that are on trial, because if we don't put them on trial, then the black people will burn down the village. So these are the sham trials, man. These are trials where the outcome has got to be a certain way, or we'll break all your shit. You know, we saw it with Rodney King. We saw it with O.J. Simpson. You know, it's like, I'm telling you, man, I mean this when I say this. Now, this may not be everybody's experience, but I've been all over this fucking world, with the exception of Asia. And I'm going to tell you something, man. By far, the most racist people that I have ever come across in my life are black Americans. They seem to just wake up in the morning and look for reasons to be pissed off. And they don't even have any pride. They're not even ashamed. They're not ashamed to realize that their anger is being driven by people with usually financial agendas. I mean, how about thinking for yourself, you dumb fucks? You know, I am so sorry that Freddie Gray died, but nobody fucking murdered him. There is no evidence to show that. The reason we're having a trial is because we got to make sure that the blacks don't burn down the village. Man, if I was black, I'd be so fucking ashamed, man. I just would be. I'd be ashamed. You know, you talk to my friend Gary and you say, well, hey, you know, what about really good people like Dr. Benjamin Carson? Immediately, he's a fucking Uncle Tom. That's what Gary and all the blacks that immediately pop off with that, they've been taught that if you see a fucking black guy and he's strung out on drugs and he's robbing in the streets and you got video proof of it, he's a victim of racism. He's a victim of not being allowed to get ahead in life, and the white man fucking forced him into that fucking situation. You and I personally forced him into that situation. If you see a fucking guy driving a Mercedes-Benz stopped at a red light and he looks like Dr. Benjamin Carson and he speaks properly and he keeps himself neat and his house is nice and neat and he pays his bills and he has a career and he's advancing up the fucking, just like achieving the American dream, immediately he's got to be a sellout. He's got to be an Uncle Tom. He cannot just be, think about it, how would you like to be black? There's no way to be a successful black American without being ostracized by other blacks that they need to use this whole fucking past history as an excuse to underachieve. When does pride come into it? When do black people start caring about themselves enough to pull themselves up? Gary, I'm speaking to you specifically. You and I both grew up in the same fucking neighborhood, man. You know my mother. My mother was a fucking prostitute before you met her. She fucking was always a drug addict and always an alcoholic. Yeah. She was fucking everything that moved, including most black guys. You know, she was as liberal as fucking Hillary Clinton. I was on food stamps. You weren't doing much better. You and I used to spend the night at your house, and we'd look out the window at the prostitutes. Remember that? And we'd fantasize about banging them. But, you know, your mom was a single mother that worked her ass off to raise you. And I love and respect her. You've got a beautiful family now. You're in America, and you came from a shithole, which is where you and I grew up, and now you're living. I see that you have beautiful people all around you, very educated people, and yet you hold on to this shit as if you were oppressed personally. Okay, I'm not fucking rich by any stretch, but I went from 104th Street in Inglewood, California, to where you met me, and I was with my little colored book of food stamps. And wearing dirty fucking clothes and the same fucking shoes for 3 years. I went from that to living in a fucking almost $1 million house with, you know, plenty of food to eat and in a nice part of America. Okay? So how did I do that? Oh, wait, because you have white privilege. No, there's no white privilege at all. I got my ass out of the fucking hood and went into the U.S. Army and became a paratrooper. And then from there, I went into law enforcement. I worked my way up, and I made sure I was an expert in certain things. And then when the terrorism thing hit, I made money doing that. And I have scratched and clawed my way to where I'm at, and I'm fucking proud of it. Okay? I never even graduated fucking high school. At least you did. Yeah? So I did all of this shit on a GE motherfucking D. And there was nobody giving me shit. Where's the white privilege I had? Where? You know, when I first applied for the LAPD, I got booted out because I had the highest score of anything I'd ever had in my life on my oral score, it's very important. And the guy on the phone told me, hey man, sorry, but we have a consent decree. We're federally mandated to hire more minorities than whites. And so we got to take a black person with a much lower score than yours. Have a nice day. And then, thank God, that person failed the background check, and 3 days before the academy started, they called me back, and I got in. I squeezed myself in and forced myself in to succeed, okay? You know, was it easy? Fuck no. I can't even spell LAPD without a fucking spell check, you know? And yet, everything I have is available to everybody. In fact, it's more available to a fucking so-called minority. Black person, Asian, Spanish, they can lean on that, on the fact that they're so goddamn underprivileged. I'm fucking sick of it, man. Do black lives matter? Yeah. Do pink lives matter? Fuck yeah. When is the black person in America gonna stop waking up with the very first thought in his head, I'm black, how am I gonna be pissed off today? You know? What the fuck else? I sent you a video, Gary. I sent you a video of these two women that they left the Democratic Party and they're supporting Trump. And these are some loud, obnoxious, sort of street type people where in terms of how they talk. Oh, Trump, you know you're gonna have to save our ass now. Okay, so they're very animated in the neck movement. And of course, immediately Gary writes them off as fucking ignorant ghetto bitches. But if they were talking about how Trump was a racist motherfucker and how Obama was a god, Gary would say, now there's some two fucking highly educated sisters. You know, the hypocrisy is fucking, it's palatable, man. It really is. And I don't know. Am I making a fucking point? Probably not. Why don't I just call it a rant? I don't know, man. I hope you guys are doing good. I'm going to go walk the fucking beast. And yeah, white lives matter too, assholes. Elements Tactical, I'm out.